That's
Good
probably why.
morning, everybody. Welcome to the Filmmaker's Life. And my name is Joanne Butcher. I am a business coach for filmmakers, and I help filmmakers raise money. Um, this podcast is for filmmakers who are my favorite people. They're the most creative people in the world, the most talented, the hardest working, and yet they often find themselves really stuck. And so this podcast is designed to show filmmakers how to move forward no matter where you're stuck. And if you need to raise money to make your film, you have come to the right place. Welcome to the Filmmaker's Life, learning from successful filmmakers how they made their first features and beyond. Get involved with the show. All right, so I'm really excited today to welcome my client, Michael DiBiasio-Ornelas. What an amazing name. I just realized I'm not the host and I can't do certain things. If you could give me the host, that would be great. Oh, you can't yet. Aha, right. Um, there are tech things on Zoom. So um, I just threw myself off what I was doing. So, Michael, welcome, and I just wanted to spotlight Michael. That's it. That's how I wanted to see it. Michael, I don't do an introduction on these things because we're going to start way at the beginning in the interview. We're going to start right where before you began filmmaking. And then we'll come up to the present time, and at the end we'll open it up for questions, and we'll see if anyone wants to ask anything. So, Michael, my first question always is: when did you know that you wanted to be a filmmaker?
First to know that I wanted. I think when I started making my first short, it's like, oh,
Really?
I guess here we are.
But what would make you make a short film if you what made you do that?
So my first short film, I did not go to film school. I lasted like 6 hours in like undergraduate film major before I was,
Really?
yeah.
But again, what made you go to film school? I mean, it sounds as though there was some
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Well, I think movies were always a source of you know, delight and kind of um solace and just I don't know, I just loved movies. Like it was just something that was a big part of my life growing up, like whether with with families or friends. Like I used to have entire weekends when I was in junior high and high school where a bunch of us would just like we would rent like all the Evil Deads, for instance, and just watch them and like go to sleep and wake up and watch like Monty Python or something. Um, but yeah, it was just a love of the medium. That was just really just as an audience member.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I was already kind of doing directing videos in high school without even really realizing it. Um, and then when I got to college, long story short, I was a fiction writer at the time, or identified only as a fiction writer at the time.
Mm, mm, mm.
Published a short story, and sorry, I just got this notification. Published a short story, and I just met a an alum of my fraternity and my school, at Columbia, and he was an independent filmmaker. And I had said, "Oh, I published a short story, and a lot of people are comparing the writing to filmmakers, and not fiction writers." And he said, "Oh, well, you should make it into a short film." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And he said, "I'll loan you all my equipment." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so in between, which is a much longer story, but I'll just say it quickly, I had a near-death experience. And I think after that, I had remembered that conversation and I just was like, why not? And so, I'd been talking about it with different friends along the way, and every friend that said, "Oh, I'll help you make a movie," I just kind of saved that in the back of my head. I did enroll within the creative writing program at Columbia in a screenwriting course. And
Mm.
to get into that course, you had to interview with the professor. And you have to have he would only let you into the class if you had a very specific story you wanted to write. So but I literally brought the pages and I said, I want to make this into a full movie, which he was very excited about because it would actually get made. And so I spent the semester adapting that. I think it was a 4-page short story into eventually an 18-page short film script with the aim of a 15-minute running time. And and they just did it. I called up all those friends who had volunteered and gave them jobs, even though I didn't. I went to like Barnes and Noble and I bought a book about like how to make a short film, and I read it and I joined online forums and stuff, and I just just kind of muddled through. And then halfway probably through that shoot, I was like, oh, okay, like this is where I need to be.
This is it. This is it. Isn't going to Columbia, isn't that a very prestigious writing program?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I graduated the year before they implemented the major as creative writing. It was a program, but yeah, I mean, it was. I had a mixed experience in terms of like the workshop environment. I don't completely believe in workshops, even though now I'm teaching screenwriting and running workshops, but I'm doing them my way. But yeah, it was. I mean, I can't. I was actually just yesterday like thinking about one of my mentors in that, or my main mentor who was running the department at the time. She's since passed, but she just had an indelible impact on my life as a writer in particular, which is inextricably linked to my career as a filmmaker.
It's funny though you said that about taking the screenwriting class, because I hadn't really thought about the fact that that's actually what got me started as well, because I came to Miami, I left England, I came to Miami, I was in the University of Miami master's degree in English literature, and then I took this elective of a screenwriting class, and the teacher was just amazing, and that was really, I guess, how I got started. I really hadn't thought of that. And I can hear the voice of somebody in the English department saying, why are you messing around with that film stuff?
Yeah.
Like really looking down their nose at it, I was like, oh, okay, well, it's fun. And then I started volunteering for this film organization and all this stuff. But that was actually how I got started. And I don't really know what prompted me to take that class.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did. So when is it that you fit in the 6 hours of film school?
Oh, I had registered, I think as a freshman, I had registered for a class, like whatever, the one class that was available in the film program, because most of what Columbia does in the film program, at least when I was there, was through the MFA program. It was, they teach theory versus versus production, and my entire career has been built on like trial and error, so. It just wasn't my vibe. Like even the school that I'm teaching at Champlain College here in Vermont, and that's what they do. Like they teach their students how to produce and how to make things. And across the street at UVM, it's film theory, and I have UVM students come up to me sometimes just being like, can you help me find some students to help me make something, because I can't make something, and it's film theory has its place, but it's not making movies.
It's very confusing though. I had a client who had just graduated from film school. He called it film school, but it was film theory school. And it's a very different thing. And I studied critical theory and film theory when I was in my master's and PhD programs, but I don't see those as sort of being something to have an undergraduate starting with. Film theory it's just bizarre to me. I don't understand why any university would do it, But apparently they're still doing it.
That's not. I don't know if they are. It's been a while since I graduated.
Right. So after you made your short film and you had the aha, this is it. What did you do next? What did you do after that?
Well, so I graduated shortly after, and I just took the only job that I had available, which was I had interned at a consulting firm. They made me an offer. I took it.
What kind of consulting?
Human resources, corporate. investment. Companies like since grown, but
Mm,
at the time it was a lot of benefits consulting and like organizational effectiveness and all that
mhm, mhm.
business stuff.
Business stuff. Wow.
Um, and because they knew me as a student, they knew I'd made the short film, and kindly and interestingly, the marketing department where I interned, they organized a screening of my short film. So like they
Wow.
wheeled in at the time. They still had these. They wheeled in the TV, and
Uh-huh.
played the DVD, and they enjoyed it. But it also kind of, I think, planted the seeds in the department supervisor of like, oh, we can use this kid for video, because video was starting to blow up,
Right.
in business. And so the two things that happened is, I was technically, in a marketing generalist role, or like a writing, coordinating marketing campaigns, but increasingly given video work to the point where, a few years later, I was, the director of video marketing for the company. But so that happened, which
He
allowed
says in an offhand way, the director of
uh,
video marketing.
well, yeah, I mean, I'm the condensed version. There was a lot of work that went into
Yes.
it, but so what that allowed me, that during the day, that allowed me to grow on the company dollar, and like, on their side they got skill and youth, and on my side I got resources and reps. So I prior to then, I didn't know a lot about actually like lighting and shooting and sound recording, but I learned it on the job there, which was incredibly helpful to what would
Mm.
happen next. And then shortly after graduation, also I met my wife Rebecca, who is an actress and an NYU graduate, and one of I would just say unique as an actress, in that she's also has a other part of her brain that makes her an excellent like logistical producer, which is
Mm.
just not as common among
Right.
actors who are also really talented at stepping into a character. It's just a different side of the brain.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and we started working together on our first project. Um, Probably the first year we started dating, or we got engaged and then decided to make a movie instead of get married. Um, and then um, yeah, so that was kind of, so during the day I did video marketing, and at night I wrote and produced. And so we made a featurette a couple of years later, which
Before
is,
you go to the featurette, I just want to ask, because it's such an interesting field that you work in with the marketing consulting work. How do you think that has impacted your filmmaking, if it has? But how do you think it has impacted it,
yeah. So
having that marketing background?
well, two things. I mean, on the practical side, it is the thing that I mentioned, which is just, it gave me, it allowed me to like 80/20 the technical skills that I needed to, I eventually I went from not knowing much of anything uh, of what to do with a camera other than being naturally good at composition, to being, I ended up DPing my first feature to save money, really, um,
Right.
and time, because I didn't have to shot list if I had the camera in my hand, um, which is not something that
No,
not something people should take away from this. But if some
that's
people
not
can
what
get
we
away
want you
with
to
it.
take away. But
Yeah.
you know what? If you have to, when you're making your first feature, that's the kind of thing that's very common.
Yeah, whatever. It's going to be a different uh, story for everyone, but there's got to be something like that, I think,
Yeah.
in most cases, to get the leverage that you need. And then the other part is, I say this all the time, even in terms of like, my students, I just started teaching this semester, and some of my students were like, "Oh, where did you go to film school?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't." And so most film professors have a PhD, and I said, "Well, I'm here because I've spent the equivalent time and money on film school making actual like movies, um, and particularly, my film, The Sleepless, that came out a few years ago, has kind of pushed me up, I think, to that level." And but what I've said to them, and what I say to people all the time, even like I try to share as much as I can about my journey and to help others, like online, writing online, is I wouldn't be here as a filmmaker without the skills and experience I've gained as a marketer and vice versa. Because the only reason I have a career is the only reasons I have a career at all is the democratization of the technology, and the access to information that kind of happened at the same time, like where I can learn in online forums and stuff, and crowdfunding, which is basically, audience building and growing from that first short film, which was like I spent $4,000 or $5,000 on my student credit card, which is, also
Again,
not.
we don't want anyone to take away this
Don't
advice.
don't do that. Save $4,000 and then do it that way,
No,
or just start crowdfunding.
Raise the money. Raise the money.
Well, at the beginning it's hard, but yeah, you could crowdfund.
Well, I mean, I have beginners who crowdfund for sure.
Yeah, it's just smaller amounts.
There's just yeah, for sure.
But that's the thing, like that's the answer to the marketing question. Like if you can only raise $2,000, you raise $2,000, you make something for $2,000, and then the goal the next time is $4,000 and twice as many people contributing, and so on. I mean, almost like literally every production that I've made has doubled in budget. And that's it's because of also it's just as I think it's just as much to the quality of the films, which is the most important thing, but also the groundwork of marketing as I go as much as I can, in terms of both like actual audience growth and then just like branding. So it's just like, this person has made X amount of movies, or they're, I can clearly see the budgets go up with the production, so they must be the real deal.
Right. So what got you to make your first feature film? Because I always think that's a very big jump from making shorts to making your first feature.
Yeah, I worked for a year or two on something that I thought was going to be my first feature. Did a couple of readings, started telling people I was doing it, and then just my gut, just had a gut check at one point, and I just felt like this is a script that is very strategic in terms of like the balance between story and budget, but I'm a marketer. I ran the numbers, and I didn't see how we were going to afford this movie based on what I felt we could raise in crowdfunding, which is really depressing. So I went through that depression.
Yes, very depressing, but very smart, and I think that really is a sign of your marketing experience, that you could go down the road with something and say, this isn't working, this isn't the way to go.
Yeah, and the other problem with it was the main character was one of the conceits was that she was like starting a podcast, which was interesting, but I also felt like it wasn't like filming someone recording a podcast didn't feel cinematic.
Right.
And people have done it to varying success, but like it just wasn't going to work. So what happened was I licked my wounds. I sort of tried to let things go. I was in therapy by then for like a couple of years, so my therapist was working on that with her. And ultimately what happened was I had taken a step back, and I was like, okay, so what is the actual number that I think we can raise? How can I even on a rough budget basis add to that with soft dollar gains, such as, okay, yes, you're very afraid of this, but it seems very clear that you're going to have to serve as the DP on your first feature because you can't afford anything else. Not even that like I can't afford it, like you can make room for that in the budget, but for all the other pieces to work, the Soderbergh route just was the right one. And I would say a couple of other factors was again, like polish here, shine over here, like just things that you don't think are impacting a major life event like your first feature. Rebecca had been cast in a sketch, like for a YouTube sketch group, and in New
Uh-huh.
York. We were in New York for most of my career. And she did the thing, and it was funny, and there was two guys, and I got to give it to them. They were a little bit younger than us. We were all in our 20s still at the time. Rebecca and I were getting close to 30, but they, for a long stretch, or at least a year and a half, 2 years, were producing a sketch every week.
Wow.
So they were growing in numbers, they were growing in skill, and so like we got along with them. It was just two guys that were living in Queens, we were living in Brooklyn, and we just started working together. Like we weren't part of the group, but like we would work together with them maybe like once or twice a month, depending on our own schedules. And they would say like, hey, like we're doing one a week. If you guys ever want to write something, like that makes it easier for us, or if you ever want to direct something, that makes it easier for us. And so while we were kind of not floundering, but just kind of still trying to parse out like how do we move on to the next level, it allowed us to get more reps in. It also it it got me way more comfortable with run and gun shooting. It just kind of filled in. So like the corporate
Uh-huh.
job,
Right.
the corporate job helped me
Right.
gain all the technical skills.
Yes.
But that kind of helped me gain the confidence and gain some more skills in terms of,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
like we're going out this one day this weekend and we're going to make this story work somehow. And and also just efficient. Like if you're trying to make something in 3 or 4 minutes, efficiency in storytelling and in shooting. So that was kind of the other aspect where, when it came down to it, um, I had a camera that was getting a little long in the tooth, but like it was mine. I knew every last thing that it could do. I was on the forums every day, like learning how to max out that camera and seeing what other filmmakers were doing. So what I did is I bought a second body. I bought another lens. I rented some gear. Both of the guys from that comedy group, we offered them associate producer roles once we decided to make
Uh-huh.
this feature, and so they helped us produce the movie. And one of them was the B shooter, where basically like I would just like frame up the A camera, and then he would just show me like on the LCD like here's what B cam looks, and I'd walk over there and move it, and not all the time. He did some good stuff too, but and that's how we did it, at least in terms of like the actual like execution. But before that, it was crowdfunding and audience building, and it was just like your standard bare minimum marketing stuff, like posting frequently on social, reaching out to people one-on-one, sending email, newsletters, and then obviously when the campaign
Well, you
itself
call
came.
that bare minimum. You call that bare minimum, but that's a lot more than most filmmakers do.
Well, I call it bare minimum because unless you're going into the system and doing it like going to LA and like chumming up with people and working your way up that way. I think that's kind of how you have to do it. Or if you go to film school and you have a wealthy friend or connections or whatever, like that works too. Like all the
Well,
power to you. But
I just want to say though, all I'm saying is that what you're calling bare minimum, most filmmakers don't do. That's all. That that the
yeah,
concept of building an audience, developing an audience, starting with 20 people, mom, my cousin, my second cousin twice removed. It's like starting with an audience and then doing the work to build that. I think most filmmakers don't think about it.
it's. I mean,
And
it's a lot of work. It's not fair,
yeah,
but
yeah, it's a
but it
lot of
is what you
work. It's
but
a
it is
lot of
what you have
work.
to do.
I tell
Uh,
filmmakers on my very first session, say in the marketing, especially at micro budget levels, the distributor will not be doing the marketing for you.
yeah,
The only person who's going to be doing the marketing is you. And
yeah,
let's know that from day one,
yeah, and it's still really hard.
Yeah, no, it's very hard, and there's not many filmmakers I know who are like, yes, marketing. I do have a couple of those clients, but
It's
it's
good.
rare. It's rare. It's the
Yeah.
minority, you know.
Yeah.
So you got the first one shot. Then what did you do with it? What did you get distribution? How did you go about that?
So before we did it, so we Rebecca and I got close to it was around when Seed and Spark had first started, and we got close
Mm-hmm.
to the leadership team. So Emily
Mm.
and Emily is a personal friend. Like I'm going to see her. Like she's coming here next month for a film festival in Vermont, and at the time, members of her leadership team, like they were like all over the place in New York, getting started at the same time that we were. So I sat down and had like meetings and ran over numbers with them, and that's kind of why there's where they're at now and why they're successful. Like they partner with their filmmakers and they arm you with everything that you need to kind of execute on a campaign versus like I had done Indiegogo before I had met them, and it was all on us, which is fine, but it is mostly all on you. But you get we felt like we were getting a lot more partnership and support, to the extent that we had also worked with this company at the time called Big Vision Empty Wallet, which is has since
Oh
um,
yeah.
they've kind of dissolved, but
Oh.
they ran a distribution lab that we got into, and so we had meetings with some distributors. At the time, what Seed and Spark was in distribution, and so ultimately we went with them. And it was a VOD release. They didn't promise anything other than like we'll get you on the platforms, and we'll do what we can. But they were just as young as a company as we were as a filmmaking team. And then we raised money, investment money specifically for marketing and distribution, and we toured. That film had a mental health. It's called the Videoblogs. It had a mental health. Uh, is predominantly themed around mental health, and so during Mental Health Month, which is May, we took it to 10 cities around the country. Rebecca and I just flew around the country, and we had screenings that were aimed at building our audience and growing our momentum heading into the VOD release, so that ideally we're kind of heading up on the star meter or whatever, and then when the release goes, you kind of shoot up. We got
Oh,
close. It
that's
didn't
great.
didn't.
And what were you heading for when you say you got close? What were you heading for on the star meter?
So what I did is I looked at the star meter trajectories of films from a couple of filmmaker friends who I
Mm,
knew their movies had made a
mm,
profit. And so it's not a perfect measurement, but I said, okay,
right,
if movie A and movie B that is around the same budget level, or around this filmmaker friend is around the same career level as me, if their film got to this number on IMDb Star Meter, and this other person's also got to this number, then that's a rough metric that I can aspire towards. So how do I
right.
hit that same metric? So that's
Very
that's what we tried to do.
interesting. Very interesting. I haven't heard that before. So when you say you didn't hit it, what were you trying to hit and what did you not hit?
I don't remember specifically. I think I want to say it was
Right?
like the creeping past 10,000. Um,
Aha.
I think that was that's my,
Yes.
and I mean I could look it up and see where we got to. If
That's
I
very interesting. Very
if I
interesting. I
knew
haven't heard that before.
now, yeah, I mean, just a couple of years later, I realized that if I had spent like $1,000 or $2,000 on Facebook ads, that we probably would have like made a profit as a movie. But I just didn't. I
Aha.
didn't know that I didn't know that.
Right, right,
And
right,
now, like
right.
now, that's not the same. You'd probably have to spend like $10,000 because everything is
Oh,
worse.
really? Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. So, so now
Yeah, we
which
got
movie were you
to
talking about?
where is it? It's not telling me. We got to 23,000, so we got close.
Yeah, nice. That's really great. The one metric I've worked on with clients like that is Rotten Tomatoes,
Hmm.
which is a completely different, set of metrics, but just a way to, see what's happening. But I like this one as well. I think that's great. So your first movie was called
The video blogs.
Videoblogs.
Yeah.
The Videoblogs. Okay.
Yeah.
So after you made that, you were still married. You were
Yeah, we survived.
you survived. That's great.
Yeah.
And did you feel as though you came out all right in terms of the money? How have you been balancing making money and making movies and then having babies along the way as well? How have you been
Well,
balancing all of that?
that last one, that last one, I'm still figuring out. I thought I had it figured out with the one baby, but now that there's
But
two,
then the second one came.
yeah. Well, so I mean, obviously at the time, like especially when we took the investment money for the video blogs. I mean, so we shot the video blogs for the crowdfunding amount was like $23,000. So
Mhm.
we, that was just we did pay everyone. I didn't pay myself very much at all because I was doing like 6 jobs on that movie, but
Right,
myself
right.
as well. But it was everything was arranged about like how do we kind of shoot this guerrilla style in Brooklyn for
Yes.
that amount. And so we succeeded in that and did it solvently. And then I was also the editor by default, which is
Right.
a whole separate issue and story. But I got it to rough cut before we ran out of money. And I
Mm.
genuinely like didn't know what to do. We were hesitant to go to the crowdfund again, but that was an option on the
Mhm.
table.
Mhm.
Um, I just didn't know what to do. In terms of fitting it into my life, I think the only reason I was able to do it was because I stayed at that company for a long
Aha.
time.
Right.
Um, and so I built up some goodwill. I went from 2 weeks vacation to 3 weeks to 4 weeks. And so basically at that point, to keep my marriage intact as well, if I had four weeks vacation on a year that I was shooting something, 2 weeks went to actual vacation and 2 weeks went to shooting, or 3 to 1, something like that. So that's, I took 2 weeks off of work and we shot in 12 days. And, I produced on over my lunch break, and, I would take the subway home at night and stop at a cafe for an hour and a half and do more
Mm.
producing. And Rebecca
Mm.
was working nights and she'd do some producing during the day. And, it was a mess, but we figured it out.
Yeah, it's funny you said that you raised $23,000 because I had one client who made a film for $23,000, but in his case, his business partner and his husband could handle 100% of post-production. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing that you did. He was able to get through production for $23,000, and
Yeah.
then they were able to add everything. But 11-day shoot, so you got one more day out of your money.
Yeah. Yeah. So just kind of partially by chance, but again, that kind of polish here, shine over there thing. I got invited to like a guy's trip to Detroit by one of my friends who was from there and moved back after graduation, a college friend. He invited some of us from school to just like go to a Tigers game, and they were playing the Red Sox, which made it an easier sell for me because I'm a Red Sox fan. And a bunch of us went just for like I was like, I don't know if I can afford it at the time, and blah blah blah. Like, I went the independent filmmaker route, so a lot of my college friends from the Ivy League school were doing can more easily book a flight than me.
Right,
Um,
right.
so, but Rebecca, to her credit, was just like, I think you should go. Just go. I think you need to do it. I think you need it in your life right now. And so I went, and honestly, like during the game, I was talking with a friend from school who was a former like roommate. We lived together for a summer and got to be friends. And he was like a film fan, but he was also an investment banker. And so he had started investing in some independent films in New York, and so
Ah,
he was asking me, and this is a really
uh-huh.
important, I think, for everyone listening. He was asking me a lot of questions about the entire industry, and I had answers for
Right.
everything. because
Uh-huh.
that's a kind of it's a hard thing to do, but when you are like me and you're like kind of more working class, but like you can stay, you can stay online and read the trades and talk to peers, and have like Zoom calls or whatever, and just no matter where you're at in your career or what direction you want to go, whether you want to be 100% independent like me or go into the industry or somewhere in between, I think it's important to have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the industry, at least 70, 80%. So, and also like I was young and I had all these ideas around innovating and like kind of seeing the writing on the wall and in terms of where we were going at the time. And so I had answers and I had plans. So I had a 14-page marketing and distribution document, that I had
Mm.
written before we even, while at the same time as I wrote the script. So like when I make a movie, I write the script and then I write the script of like distribution, which is
Hmm.
just like a marketing and distribution plan. And I've done it for everything that I've produced. Um, so we had a few beers and like we just kept talking and weren't paying attention to the game. And like at a certain point, he came back from getting a hot dog and gave me a check for a lot of money.
Oh
And
my God,
so
that's so good. I've never heard that full story in
yeah,
detail like that. That's so
um,
good.
and then the idea was like, how do we get him this money back? And again, I think we came, and I was I was transparent with him about this. I'm transparent with every time I talk to an investor about like, look, this is film, it's high risk, high reward. Like you have like invest the amount of money that you are willing to lose because that is more likely than not. Here are all the things I'm doing to make it less likely, but like
Right.
here's what's in my control and here's what's not. And so for the video blogs, I think all of our success, given the fact that we were a micro budget movie with no name actors, it was all going to be how well we could execute on our grassroots marketing plan.
Right.
And the goal again was even behind the filming tour and VOD and digital marketing. It was we have to land at the time iTunes was still the top. It was in that window where iTunes was the top source of revenue for most independents. The goal was like we need to shepherd all of our momentum strategically at the same time so that again, this is the only metric we have, but like for instance the star meter is heading towards that number that we wanted to get, which will result in the algorithms for iTunes being triggered to get us on just like the new in indies page or whatever they
Right.
called it.
Right.
Like that
Right.
was in my view the only way we were gonna we our screening tour was profitable. We sold merch, like we made money, but to get the volume back that the investor needed, that needed to happen. And unfortunately um we fell short, but also he was so happy with the movie as a creative piece that
Wow, how
you know
awesome. How awesome.
he's come back for two more movies.
The next two movies. And is he also investing in other films, or has he sort of more focused on your films now?
I think I don't know. I think he's taken a step back. He was part of like um I don't know what they're called, but they're the groups that do like there are some groups that do the gap financing.
Uh-huh.
Like Bombach was doing that a lot in New York for a while, and then he was part of a group
Uh-huh.
that was helping him with gap financing, and Bombach is a pretty easy return.
Hmm.
So
Right.
I think that it's dependent on that. He supports us, I think, on an artistic basis, but I think it's more like me and us. Um, Other than like Yorkie Werewolf, which is like we're all looking to make some money with this.
Yes, yes, yes. So after video blogs, you made another movie, which was
The
Sleepless,
Sleepless. Yeah.
right? And so did you try crowdfunding again for that? Now you already had an investor. So how did you come up with the money for that movie?
So one thing the video blogs did really well for us was it really grew our reputation in the industry, particularly in New
Mm,
York. So
mm,
um, enough people saw enough of the right people in the New York indie scene um, saw that I was getting meetings off of that movie. Again, like just within the New York independent film scene, which is not nothing, but I wasn't like flying to LA or anything. Um, and I ended up connecting with the producer, and we vibed, and he was like, "I'm interested in working with you in the future. Like, send me any scripts." And eventually, I did write a script that I felt it was a rom-com that I felt was something, and I brought it to him, and he responded well to it, and decided to work on it with me. And we spent, I think we spent like 6 months getting it up, getting the script up to snuff. Um, at the same time, I had a friend who I went to college with who went into the industry in LA and had produced some movies for like Netflix. And he read it and also liked it. So we kind of, between the two of them and Rebecca, we had a team, the four of us.
Right. Right.
And so we went back to that first investor that I mentioned from the Videoblogs, and we targeted some others and ended up getting two investors and
Wow, you
raising.
doubled your investor pool.
Yeah, and we
That's
doubled
great.
the money that we raised.
Right. Right.
So it was definitely enough to get started, but it wasn't enough. Like, so we were targeting like a $2 million budget, which in retrospect was a mistake. But
Right.
the producer that I was working with had just worked on a $4 million movie with an A-lister, so it wasn't
Right.
really a mistake. It just, in retrospect, I would have made some different choices. But
Yes.
he brought that script to that A-lister whose agent liked it and passed it along. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to make a $2 million movie. Like, amazing.
Right. I'm on the right path. Yeah.
And then his manager said, I like it too, but he just made a similar movie, so he's out. So we went from, oh, we're going to make a $2 million movie to, oh, how do we make this $2 million movie? Long story short, we spent 2 years and a quarter of our investment money trying to get that movie made, including hiring casting directors in LA, making offers. I was watching like actors' filmographies on the subway on my phone so that I could write them like personalized like notes to go with the offer letters. And we just and sometimes we were back channeling and waiting like sometimes 4 or 5 months to hear back from an actor, and it destroyed me
Yeah.
because I wasn't
Yeah.
making movies.
It's soul crushing. It's soul crushing to be in development for a real filmmaker. It's
Yeah,
soul
yeah,
crushing.
it was bad. So eventually I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to burn any more of these investors' money. Um, I got My mental health took a big hit again. I developed severe chronic insomnia,
Oh,
largely as a result of that experience, but just it was just too much in addition to like all the rest of my life. Um, but as will happen sometimes, I ended up kind of spasmodically like writing a new script, which is
mm,
a romantic dramedy more than a comedy. But I kind of just like in the back of my head, I think I was like, how do I take everything that worked from the video blogs and do it
yes.
again, but more
Yes.
intentionally
Yes.
and in a growth minded way, as a bridge to I still wanted to make, and I still do want to make, that bigger rom com. It hasn't gone away. I actually have a managing like producer partner now, and he's on it, which is awesome. And
Right.
I'm not expecting it to happen, but it could happen.
It
It's
could.
like,
That's right.
and I'm not killing myself to make it happen.
Right. And you're
Um,
still making movies at the same time. So
yeah. So I went back to the investors and I said, hey, like I wrote this other movie. I don't want to spend any more of your money on this other one that isn't going according to plan. I could give you your money back, but like we've already spent some of it. I have this other script. The producers that I mentioned, including Rebecca, were all on board with the plan. I ran it past them first. I gave them the script. They loved it. Um, and so that was the Sleepless. And so what we decided was let's make the Sleepless. Let's make the best movie we can possibly make. And in certain ways, like let's make a second calling card feature, because
right.
now in the
Right.
industry you have to do like 3 or 4 of those instead of one. Um, but and when people say, hey, this is great, we'll say, okay, well, we have this bigger rom-com And so that, that was the goal. And obviously also we want to, make a return on that as well. So we made it. We shot it in 2019. Obviously, everybody knows what happened in 2020. So, the distribution plan for that was, ultimately I decided,
Kaput.
like I would rather, not knowing at the time what was going to happen, I'd rather not sit on this movie until the pandemic ends, however it might. So, we had to modify our plan. But, again, I think our plan that time was pretty much the same in terms of the marketing and distribution plan. The difference being like I spent money on Facebook ads this time.
Uh-huh,
Um,
uh-huh.
what else did we do differently? We obviously couldn't do a screening tour. We did more festivals, even though many of them ended up being virtual, or almost all of them.
Virtual. Yeah, yeah,
We did
yeah.
get one screening at a drive-in during the pandemic, which was amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
And
I've never been to a drive-in.
and
I also I want to make sure, because we're going to run out of time, but because usually I like to focus on the first movie, but I really want to get to the Yorkie Werewolf,
yeah.
because that's where you and I work together, and I'm dying to hear the latest news. So now, when you started working on the Yorkie Werewolf, the pandemic was still going, right? Were we still?
I think yes. I think the vaccines had come out, so there was like light at the end of the
Okay,
tunnel.
okay.
So I was
Yes,
thinking like
yes.
eventually we'll all be able to get on set.
Right,
Because
right.
even when we shot, like COVID happened. Like we had like we ended up in a mini wave in Vermont when we were shooting, and it hit us.
And you and Rebecca had COVID right before the shoot.
Yeah, which was fortunate, I guess. But our 2-year-old got it during the
Right.
shoot, which meant I couldn't go home during the whole shoot, which was
Oh,
heartbreaking.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's right. Oh my
yeah.
God. To
I slept
witness
on
you
I slept
going
on location for a week.
right,
Yeah,
right, because of COVID and everything that you went through building up to, because one thing that happens a lot with filmmakers is that they're like, okay, I want to shoot in these months, and you were already in Vermont and the winter would be coming, and
yeah,
so the choices are now or a year from now, kind of thing. And I was witnessing that, and that decision, you were moving forward. Then you got COVID, Rebecca got COVID, the baby got COVID, everybody got, it was just amazing, all of the things that said to you, let's not move forward. And yet
yeah,
you did. It was incredibly impressive to watch.
yeah.
You know, when you look back on it, how did you actually achieve that?
Um, I mean, I think by then it's and we saw this in play out on set. By then it was just about I think about trust. So it's like I've made because I also during COVID
Mm-hmm.
during COVID I directed an experimental feature that we shot on Zoom just because I
Right.
was also like I was kind of having an existential crisis between like lockdown and like am I ever going to be on set again, and then after that like
Yep.
I mean that's why we started working together. I was just like
Yes.
I'm afraid my career is over and I don't want it to be
Right.
because I don't know
Yeah.
what to do next. um and um so I think it was also making an intentionally campy movie was a very different choice. I mean, so the Videoblogs is like capital A art house. The Sleepless is like
Right.
pretty much the same. I mean, it's a black and white Linklater style like romance. So
Right.
it was a the experimental feature on Zoom was as a broad, not a broad, but an absurd comedy. And I've just gotten further and further into comedy as my career has gone on. But
Mm.
the Yorkie Werewolf is an extreme departure from my earlier mental health themed philosophically talky films. And I had to kind of grapple with that a little bit in terms of like I think some fear came up in terms of like, oh, are people going to take this seriously or me
Mm.
seriously if I go from like art house to camp? But the goal that I had said, and you'll remember this from our conversations with this movie, is just like when I wrote it, I was like kind of on a lark, and then but I had so much fun writing it, and one of my answers to the existential crisis was, how do I make this process like fun again? And so
Yes.
the main goal for that movie, um, from the start has been like, let's have as much fun as we can. Including like just like right now, I'm working on the marketing distribution plan, and I've gotten into the weeds a little bit. And I was talking to Rebecca, and she was just like, "Sounds like you're not having fun." And I was like, "Shit, okay, I got to go back and find out that we're gonna have
Oh,
fun."
oh gosh, yes.
you know, um, but
Well,
yeah,
also, I think that you were manifesting something that the whole world was, we went through COVID. It was terrifying, and so many people have said that nobody wanted to see disaster movies anymore. Nobody. We needed to have some fun, right? We
yeah,
needed to laugh, and the Yorkie Werewolf script is really funny. You know, I personally think comedy is terribly hard, but the script was very, very funny, just even to read it. You know, and so I love that concept of, well, like Rebecca just reminding you, are you having fun?
yeah.
That's
And the
not
other
the
thing
right
is like,
direction.
I looked at like everything kind of alluding in reference to what you were just saying with like post mid pandemic, post pandemic, and I was just like, okay, I need to take a breath from like the art house stuff, because like honestly, like I can't even make sense of anything right now. This is all so absurd. And so it's like, let me just lean into the absurdity for a minute, you know, and maybe that's where I belong, or maybe that's where I belong right now. Because,
Is where,
something that's been helpful for me as the movie has matured at different phases is people, which is an incredible compliment, but people have made a few references to like Monty Python in terms of like the brand of
oh yeah,
humor. And so I was like, oh,
yep,
those were really smart
very
guys
smart.
doing some amazingly important work as comedians. So
Yes,
okay, I can try
yeah,
that. I can try that.
yeah. So, can you tell everybody a little bit about the Yorkie Werewolf, because uh, it's pretty funny. Even the log line is funny.
Yeah, I mean, so
The
it's
title is funny. The title is already funny.
yeah. I mean, that's the goal. So my vision, on the distribution standpoint or the marketing standpoint was like, okay, part of the reason for green lighting it, so to speak, was I can see the key art coming up on someone's smart TV. I can see them chuckling. They play the trailer. Like if we execute on the movie, the trailer is going to be funny. They click play just on a, again, like on a lark. And before you know it, it's not a long movie. Like they've just like chuckled their way through like an hour and 12 minutes or whatever it is. And then we're good, and then maybe they tell their friends. Like it's, it's getting back to simplicity as well. Just like make a good movie and put in the right mechanisms for people to discover and share it, but even like embedding more shareability in the DNA of the movie, which is like the title, the key art, the concept, the premise. Um, so that's what we did. It's about a just the way the script turned out. It's about a rebellious teen witch who gets turned into a Yorkie-sized werewolf, and she gets thrown into a battle with the local mafia because why not? That's just what
Why
came out
not?
when I started writing. I also, I leaned into some of the funnier stereotypes around my Italian American identity because, like, why not? I'm allowed to do that. And
Yes.
so, yeah, it's ridiculous. We finished it. I don't even remember. My brain is mush, but like, we finished it. And I secured some representation along the way.
Oh, what was
Just
that? What's that about?
well, I mean, as you know, like I for a while, not so much recently because I've been busy, but I was writing on LinkedIn every day about like all the stuff that I've learned, all the stuff we talked about today, all that stuff I've learned about throughout my career. And eventually I got to meet someone, asked about a meeting, and we had a couple of calls and we decided to work together. It's kind of a manager producer relationship more than like a
Right.
a straight
Right.
like manager. He read Stalemates. He liked it. He's like, I want to help you make this. I sent him
Great.
uh, I sent him the Yorkie. He's like, this is ridiculous. Let me help you with this. Let's see if we can translate
Oh,
the comedy from the horror comedy into the comedy of the romantic comedy. I don't,
uh-huh.
we're still
Oh,
working on that
nice.
angle.
Very
But
interesting.
but his goal for me is like let's make sure this movie makes even $1 more than it cost. So then
Yeah,
his feeling is like, I'm going to go out and market you as a filmmaker who made money
makes
back
money.
on a comedy, and so we're going to go get this comedy funded, and we're going to make your money back to whoever he's pitching. Um,
Very good. Very
so,
good.
but also along the way, we had some, again, like I had some inbound, like this is when you're a good marketer, you get inbound
Yep.
inquiries. So,
Yep.
a sales agent two sales agents actually, eventually, well, two domestic and one international, but I just started getting emails. Once the film is up on IMDb, certain people have like filters or whatever, and they ask
Right.
about it. And I cut together a teaser trailer so that I had it available for such opportunities. Which again, like marketing uh, mind, like we didn't have the time or the money yet for a trailer, but I as an editor could again throw together a trailer that is good enough. Um, and one of those sales agents on the domestic side is just he's got really deep roots in the horror and horror camp niche. Sent
That's
him,
amazing. When you told me that, I was just blown away. I'm like, somebody who already knows, yeah, camp is a good word for the film. Somebody who already knows that. Wow.
yeah, and he's the sales agent for our closest comp as a movie, so it was just perfect. I did my due
Right.
diligence. Like, my manager did some kicking around, and you remember we talked about this. He brought the movie to
Yes.
AFM and had some meetings, but like nothing attracted us so much as working with this guy. And then
Right.
a couple months later, we got an inquiry for international sales agent, and I took that meeting, and it went well, and I liked it. And so right now, like my lawyer's reviewing, we signed with the domestic sales agent. Right now, we have an offer for North American distribution that the lawyer's looking at the contracts right now, and he's also looking at the contract for the international sales agent.
Mm. And what are your best hopes for where the film might end up?
In what terms? Like channel wise, or
Either channels, domestic, or what are you hoping for?
honestly, like I would like to perform in alignment with that closest comp that I mentioned, because if we do, we'll hit our revenue goals. So
Right.
I charted out. I started on this when we were working together in terms of like the top level math on the pitch deck of like, here's what we intend
Right.
to come back in the different windows for ROI. But now I have that drilled down like much more deeply in a kind of back end document.
Uh-huh.
And already I have to do a second version of that because we were going to do something different with theatrical that we're not going to do now. But I think I'm just going to do some grassroots theatrical starting in New England and
Right.
just
Right.
see how it goes. Because I will
Yeah. Yeah.
I will have theatrical rights, so I might as well do something with them. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so yeah, I mean it's literally just like let's make our money back and then some if we can. Um, and we think there's a real possibility of that given the comps that we have from our partners that we're working with. And channel wise, I don't really have a preference. I just wanted to hit the top of
No.
one or two, you know,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah. That's great. No, it's very, 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 very exciting. And as I said, when you said that you found this international sales agent who has experience with horror comedy, I was just like, that is fantastic, because that's a particular niche, but something that's very popular. I mean, there's definitely an audience for that. So somebody who already has been down that road,
yeah.
excellent, excellent. Well, I can't wait to. When are you thinking it's going to be released? Do you know that yet, or you just signed the contract so you don't
It's
know?
yeah, it's rough. We're May, June, maybe.
May, June.
Yeah, potentially July, depending on how slow things move on the outset. But we have our first festival screening next month here in Vermont.
Oh, really?
Maybe some others coming up soon. Just getting started. Just getting started with audience building and momentum and PR.
Right. Fantastic. Well, people are going to love it when they see it. Oh, and I'm going to put a plug in, Michael, for the next film. Well, I know there's the romantic comedy, but the Witch Family, that has to be a movie.
I've told the sales agent and the distributor, I was like, if I'm ready to make a sequel as soon as we start seeing the numbers come back, I don't care.
Yeah. The 3 generations of witches are fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So
yeah, one of them played by Rebecca DeOrnelas. Just
one of them played by Rebecca. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a sequel. Maybe it's a prequel.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I have some pretty zany notes for a sequel, though, Joanne.
Yeah. I can imagine. But you look at this. Here we are laughing. We're not even looking at the film. We're laughing. I really am taking to heart your whole thing about this has got to be fun. It does. And we're filmmakers because we love filmmaking, not because we want to be miserable.
Yeah.
Michael, thank you so much. What a pleasure to get to catch up with you and hear all the good news about the movie. And keep sending me all your info. I think I'm on your list or whatever I am. So looking forward to more, and say hi to Rebecca for me, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
And thank you, Emily. Bye, everybody. Bye.